welcome to Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. I've just been doing a simple job, which normally is a simple job on this car, the Aston Martin DB5, but it proved to be anything but. And anyway, let's get into that later. This is a car that I've wanted to feature for a while, and it's just never quite happened. We've had them in for work and they've gone out again, and we do actually work to a program and deadlines here, so the videos are sort of as and when we can on an ad hoc basis. But there's nothing ad hoc about this car. This is an Aston Martin DB5. Very interesting, really. Aston Martin history has been interspersed with financial provision and then lack. They even had to stop making cars in the mid-1970s for, I think, 12 to 18 months altogether, because it was cheaper to do that than actually build them. But anyway, this was one of the golden era highlights of Aston Martin. Was it ever, actually, on various levels? Mid-1960s, so it's the David Brown era, since he got involved with the DB1, 2 and 3, obviously his initials, and then the 4 was introduced, a completely clean sheet design in 1959, bodywork designed and constructed by Touring of Milan to their Superleggera patented system, which means super light. It's basically a very sturdy chassis incorporating the floor pans and everything welded together as a steel assembly. And then you have a framework over which the bodywork is literally just almost hung. Quite a lot of aluminium body cars, Countach's, for example, they use a space frame. The engine was designed by the Polish designer Tadek Marek. I find it very difficult to concentrate when I have a Merlin competing. Fantastic noise. The engine was an all-alloy straight six design, very unusual for its time. Jaguar, of course, brought the XK engine out in 1947. They'd been developing it during the war, the Jaguar team. That was a cast iron block with an alloy head made of RR50 aluminium, Rolls-Royce patented aluminium alloy, or aluminum for our friends across the channel. It was a very, very good engine, this engine actually. It started off at 3.7 litre. It was, in the DB4, a very, very good power plant. The Series 1 DB4 lasted no time at all. They were very quick to update it in 1960, and they went right through to the Series 5 in 1962-63, when this was launched. I've restored over the last 40 years lots of Aston Martins, the team and I, including going right back to to basically almost starting again with the car. One of the funny, curious things that I've noted over the years is that the aluminium block in the engine, which is basically an aluminium shell with the cast iron liners push-fitted into place, with O-rings around the bottom to seal them. You can actually tell how the car's been driven by how worn the cylinder block is. When you take the engine out and remove the cylinder liners, there are various parts of the aluminium engine where the aluminium actually moves. Aluminium has a higher coefficient of expansion and contraction than cast iron does, so everything moves a bit more. And the corrosion, because the aluminium block has been moving with the loads, the mechanical loads of high RPM, high load acceleration, high speed, ultra high speed for the time, cruising over 130 miles an hour, the block actually moved more and corroded more on a hard-driven car than it did on a more gently driven car. So, for example, the Vantage version of this, which they made 63 of, or 65, we did a lot of work on one of those a few years ago. Lovely car, extra power, and we took the head off that, and it was quite. The block was actually quite worn away, for want of a better way of putting it. Aluminium does have a habit of wearing more than cast iron in use, particularly in this era of technology. Just an interesting byproduct, really. Most of them now have had a new front end, so that the aluminium bodywork is literally sliced here, halfway inside the front wheel arch. A new front end is made over a wooden butt because of stone chips and corrosion, because of the weathering right on the front of the car. That's something that we've had done. Tony at Moreland Classic Cars, who specialises in Aston Martins a lot, has put I think several front ends on for us over the years. This car is finished in the quintessential silver birch. They made some lovely colours at the time. Dubonnet Rosso, a deep burgundy metallic. California Sage is a lovely colour. But of course, they painted this car for a certain film that came out in 1965, 64, 65, and the rest is history. The 5, it was almost a direct replacement of the DB4 Mark V Vantage with the covered-in headlights. The DB4s normally had the more external chopped-off headlights, and the engine went on to triple SU carburetors as standard, Connolly leather interior as standard. It's quite amusing. I've got a sales brochure in my library of the DB5, an original factory Aston Martin sales brochure, and it's very amusing. For instance, if I just open up to this page, if we just look at the quality of the or lack of it, of the trim around the pedal area and where the carpet meets it, you've got all this beautiful craftsmanship and materials, Wilton, etc., and then a pretty rough-looking bit of vinyl across there. And this is in their sales brochure, right in plain sight. It's amazing how expectations and standards of cars, not only the quality of the cars themselves, but the expectations have come on in the last, 60 years or so, a bit more. But the DB5 is still a great car, just absolutely quintessentially British. And this car has been restored by Aston Engineering in Derby. They've done a lovely job of it. I mean, yeah, it would be, I think, a bit crass, really, to lower ourselves to referring to any sort of synergy with that famous British spy. I think any James Bond connection would be distinctly in for a dig, really. We don't need to go there. Well, what I'm going to do now is I've removed the air filter assembly, and I'm just, there are 2 timing chains on this engine. There is the primary and the secondary, and the primary is basically a loop from the main crankshaft to a boss sticking out of the front of the engine, inside the engine, and then so the chain runs around that, and then a second chain comes up and round and drives the camshafts. The primary chain tensioner is down there with a 9/16 lock nut and a screw that's adjusted with a screwdriver. It's painfully simple, but it works so well. Simple is great. The Jaguar XK engine, and indeed the later AJ6, in the XK engine, it worked very well. It was spring-loaded, but completely inaccessible or impossible to look at once the engine is built up. And the AJ6 engine used a Reynolds tensioner, the XJ40 engine in the 1980s. Brilliant engine, but that tensioner, it was ratcheted and toothed, and the teeth used to wear. And when you started it up, it had fully retracted, and you had to have oil pressure to push it out and quieten the timing chain on the engine down. It was quite unpleasant, actually, all for the sake of that tensioner. But these are, as I say, beautifully simple. It's easy peasy to adjust both chains, so I'm just going to do that to make sure they're okay. The interesting thing is that this finish on the cam covers here is it's a sort of mottled duck egg finish, for want of a better way of putting it. And this is how Aston Martin turned them out originally. It sort of begs the question, because Jaguar had their beautiful polished cam covers, the engines are very similar in a lot of ways, apart from the difference in cylinder block material. But Jaguar had these beautiful polished cam covers, which were a visual delight. You opened the bonnet on a Jaguar, and it had the wow factor. It really did on an E-Type or whatever. So it sort of left Aston Martin with nowhere to go. When the engine was announced 12 years after Jaguar announced their engine, they had no choice. Unless they wanted it to look like a Jaguar engine, they had to sort of come up with this finish, which isn't terribly, it looks businesslike and it looks elegant, but it's not as nice as polished cam covers. Some people polish Aston Martin cam covers, but then it does look like a Jaguar XK engine. So it was Aston Martin being boxed into a corner by Jaguar's cleverness, really. But anyway, we'll get on. I'll adjust the timing chains. I'll need some special tools for that, which I'll just get now. Right, so for the bottom timing chain, we need a 9/16 spanner and screwdriver, a small 7/16 spanner for the upper chain, and then, whoops. Okay, so this is almost impossible to get a camera into, but this basically, this nut and screw control the bottom chain. I said, what was I saying before about this easy to gain access to? There we go, that's it undoing. Oh yes, that's gone quite a way actually. That's too far. I'll back it off a bit. Just the gentlest of adjustments. It's literally an eighth of a turn of that screw. I'm moving it back and forward. So, I'll now just get the spanner and lock that up. That's all it is, that movement. Just a little bit, but that can make all the difference. Okay, now it's drawn blood. How dare it? Now, this is a very ingenious system. This is my ancient spanner here. That goes on there. And then this is just basically slacken that off. There we are. That's it. Easy peasy, he says. Let's have a listen to it to see what it sounds like. Making myself a hostage to fortune there. Normally this is a very easy job, but there is a heavy flexible hose in the way, which has turned this into a rather more inaccessible situation than was normal. Anyway, we've done it. It's taken a few minutes, but it's actually done now. So we'll take the car out for a run. And I'm sure if he were here, which of course he is not, I'm sure 007 would approve. Well, there's something strange happening here. My voice is changing. I don't know why. What's this? This is very strange. Very strange. Obviously a useless toy. Well, I think we need to close this segment down straight away. Well, it's quite interesting driving this car. I mean, this, as I mentioned earlier, this is freshly restored, and a very nice job it is too. It's amazing how polarizing the different makes and models of touring cars were in the 1960s, and there weren't that many made by their own manufacturers, certainly in European cars. I mean, all American cars virtually used American engines at the time. Aston Martin, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Maserati, Jaguar, Mercedes-Benz. There were quite a few of them, but there weren't really, in terms of performance, there wasn't a Mercedes or a Jaguar 2+2 that would do over 145 miles an hour. So it was quite exclusive. And this, of course, an all-alloy engine as well, like the Ferrari or Lamborghini engines and the Maserati, took it to a very, very narrow width indeed. But it's so polarizing. What I was going to say was, it's so polarizing about the different makes and models. For instance, Ferrari owner of a 330 GT 2+2 would probably not have one of these sat next to it in his garage. They would either be an Aston Martin person, or a Ferrari person, or a Lamborghini person, or a Maserati person, and hardly the twain would ever meet in customers' garages. And I've heard it so many times over the years. Oh, those Aston Martins, they drive like trucks, or oh, those Ferraris and Lamborghinis are highly strung. There's very little grace given to either end of the spectrum. But this is, as a classic car, this ticks just about every box imaginable, apart from being cheap and cheerful. It most certainly is not that. This is a hand-built car with a hand-built powertrain and handmade interior, hand-stitched interior, etc. This is top stuff. A truck, it is not. Now, I must make a shout out to our local council here, or the highways department, for actually resurfacing our test track. I would not presume to say this is an effect of the videos and the channel, the fact that we've made so many hundreds of videos on this road, but the net result is we have a beautifully tarmacked road surface with freshly painted white lines. I'm not going to push this car hard, because I don't know how old the restoration is. The odometer has been zeroed, I suspect. It's done 1,252 miles, but we can open it up. We can open the taps just a little bit. I will not use the expression "what can possibly go wrong." It's all there. I can tell straight away that is not a 4-litre engine. That will be a 4.2, 4.5, or even 4.7 litre conversion inside the engine, all of which is achievable by altering the bore size more than anything else. This car has got big lungs, and now that everything's warming up, it's stable on the road. Bags of torque. I suspect it's got a handling kit on it as well, because they do not hold the road like this as standard. So altogether, a very sensitively and tastefully done car, this, actually. And this engine is very different from the Ferrari and Lamborghini engines. It's redlined at 5,500 RPM, which is low, really. I mean, the Lamborghini V12, as fitted in the less highly strung Lamborghinis, the GT cars like this equivalent, you'd be talking about probably redlined at 7,000, and the same with the Ferrari touring cars, probably just over 7,000, and it's they're built for torque in as much as an overhead cam V12 can be of that era, whether single or double overhead cam, but they're not as much torque as this, not low down. Again, now that the gearbox is warmed up and we've got T's and P's, let's just open the taps. Yeah, I'm going to limit myself to 4,000 RPM because of the newness, but it's all there. It's great. I can notice a few people doing a bit of a double take and looking at us on this road test. Can't imagine why. Honestly, not as if I'm doing anything unusual or anything like that. Here we go again. that lovely induction roar, 3,800 RPM. Still a great deal to go, but this is not the car to start going crazy in. It is a customer's car, as is more often than not the case, and but just the way it does have very nice handling. This car, it is point and shoot. It really is. The handling kits, Roddy Harvey Bailey, a friend of mine, we were pals in the 1980s and 90s. He developed the handling kit for these cars. He did consultancy work for Aston Martin on new cars at the time, secretly. And this has definitely got his kit on, because you just think the steering wheel round a bend and it's there. Just delightful. Absolutely wonderful. Well, that concludes another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop video. Please remember to subscribe, and we'll be back with something else very soon. Well, I am generally quite impressed with this car, but there are one or two things I particularly want to point out. The sun visors are a piece of perspex which has been tinted. It's tinted perspex and gives an excellent vantage point from the sunlight. Much better than a solid sun visor. The other thing that's beautifully precise is the window switches with this beautiful click action, which is just absolutely fantastic. But I have to say, the car's a bit of a disappointment, bearing in mind Q's previous efforts.